The studio lights blazed with intensity, reflecting off the polished stage as cameras rolled and the audience buzzed with anticipation. Carrie Underwood, the country superstar known for her grace and poise, sat across from former President Donald Trump in what was expected to be a spirited but respectful discussion about music, politics, and American culture. However, what began as a cordial exchange quickly spiraled into one of the most unexpected and explosive confrontations in recent television memory, leaving both viewers and crew members stunned at the fiery clash that unfolded between the country icon and the polarizing political figure. From the moment the interview began, there was an unmistakable tension in the air. Carrie, elegant and composed in her fitted white ensemble, smiled politely as the host introduced Trump. The audience erupted into a mix of applause and murmurs, aware that when Trump was in the room, things rarely stayed calm for long. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. The conversation started with light-hearted topics: Carrie's recent tour, her upcoming Christmas album, and her reflections on motherhood. Trump, appearing in high spirits, complimented her on her success, saying she was one of the few entertainers who still represented good old-fashioned American values. But as the discussion turned toward the state of the entertainment industry and its growing political divide, the mood began to shift. Trump launched into a familiar critique, claiming that Hollywood had become too woke and out of touch with real Americans. Carrie nodded respectfully, choosing her words carefully as she responded. "I think people just want music that brings them together," she said with a soft smile. "I don't think anyone wants to feel like they're being divided or judged for what they believe." Trump, however, wasn't satisfied with her diplomatic answer. Leaning forward, he said, "That's true, but the problem is, most people in your industry are afraid to speak the truth. They're afraid to stand up for America." His tone carried a sharp edge, and his eyes locked on hers as though challenging her to take a side. The audience grew quieter. Carrie's smile faded slightly, and she adjusted her posture. "I think there's a difference between standing up for what you believe in and attacking others for what they don't," she replied evenly. "As artists, we have a responsibility to spread love and understanding, not more anger." That statement seemed to set Trump off. He smirked, shaking his head, and said, "That's a nice line, but it's easy to say that when you've never been canceled or attacked like I have. You don't know what it's like to have the media and Hollywood against you every single day." Carrie's expression hardened just a bit. "With all due respect," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I think we all face criticism. Everyone in the public eye does. But I don't think it helps when we keep feeding into it with more hostility." The exchange grew tenser. Trump, clearly irritated, raised his voice slightly. "Hostility? You call defending America hostility? That's the problem. You entertainers want everyone to play nice while the country falls apart. You all sit in your mansions, sing your little songs, and pretend you're helping people." The words landed with a thud, and there was an audible gasp from the audience. Carrie, taken aback by the tone, took a deep breath before responding. "Sir, I don't pretend to be perfect or political," she said, her voice steady. "But I care deeply about this country. My music is meant to lift people up, not tear them down. I don't think it's fair to judge anyone's patriotism just because they express it differently." The tension was palpable now. The host, clearly sensing the conversation was veering off course, tried to interject with a lighter question, but Trump continued. "That's the problem. People are too afraid to say what's really going on. You talk about unity, but unity doesn't come from silence. It comes from strength. It comes from people standing up and saying what needs to be said." Carrie, maintaining her composure, responded sharply, "Strength also comes from compassion. It comes from listening, not just talking. Sometimes, the loudest voice in the room isn't the one doing the most good." That last line drew applause from the audience, and Trump visibly bristled at it. He turned toward the crowd, gesturing with his hands. "Of course, they'd clap for that," he muttered. "That's what the media loves, pretty words. But when it comes time to actually do something, no one steps up." Carrie leaned forward slightly, her tone soft but cutting. "Maybe doing something starts with changing how we talk to each other. You don't win people over by shouting them down." At that moment, Trump leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and gave a sarcastic chuckle. "You sound like a politician," he said mockingly. "Maybe you should run for office. See how far all that love and unity stuff gets you. Carrie smiled faintly, refusing to take the bait. I think I'll stick to singing, she replied. Music reaches hearts faster than politics ever will. The host tried again to steer the conversation back to her career, asking about her songwriting process, but the atmosphere in the room had changed. Trump, visibly agitated, muttered something under his breath about Hollywood hypocrisy, which Carrie seemed to catch. She tilted her head slightly and said, I don't think kindness is hypocrisy. Her tone was gentle but unmistakably firm. The audience erupted again, this time louder, clearly siding with her. That seemed to be the final straw for Trump. He raised his voice, his frustration boiling over. You know what's wrong with people like you. You live in your perfect little bubble, pretending the world is all sunshine and rainbows while real Americans are struggling. You don't know what it's like to fight for something real. The studio fell silent. Carrie's eyes widened slightly, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with quiet authority, she replied, You don't have to yell to prove you care. I know what real struggle looks like. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I've never forgotten where I came from. Maybe it's time we stop turning everything into a fight and start remembering what we share. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The crowd broke into spontaneous applause, some even rising to their feet. Trump, clearly angered by the reaction, stood up abruptly, adjusting his suit jacket. I don't need to sit here and be lectured by someone who sings songs for a living, he snapped. The audience gasped again as he turned toward the exit. The host, visibly panicked, called after him, Mr. Trump, please, let's just finish the interview. But Trump ignored him, muttering something about media setups and Hollywood phonies as he walked off stage. Carrie remained seated, composed despite the chaos. The host apologized to the audience and tried to lighten the mood, but everyone's attention stayed fixed on her. She smiled gently, almost sadly, and said, I think it's important to remember that even when things get heated, we can still treat each other with respect. That's what I try to do every day. Her poise and grace in the aftermath of the confrontation earned her a standing ovation, and social media exploded almost immediately. Within minutes, clips of the fiery exchange went viral. Hashtags like hashtag Carrie Underwood vs Trump, hashtag Carrie speaks truth, and hashtag Trump walks off began trending across platforms. Fans praised Carrie for standing her ground without losing her composure, calling her the embodiment of grace under pressure. Others defended Trump, arguing that he was only speaking his mind and that the media had once again set him up to look bad. The polarized reactions mirrored the divisions in the country itself, but one thing was clear, no one could stop talking about the clash. In the following days, talk shows, news outlets, and social media influencers dissected every second of the confrontation. Political commentators debated whether Carrie's calm responses represented a new kind of quiet resistance in celebrity culture, while others speculated that Trump's outburst had been intentional, a way to dominate headlines once again. Carrie, for her part, stayed above the noise. When reporters caught up with her after the show, she simply said, I believe in standing firm but staying kind. We're all human, and sometimes emotions run high. But kindness never goes out of style. Her words were widely praised, reinforcing her reputation as one of the most genuine and grounded figures in entertainment. Even those who didn't agree with her views admitted she handled herself with remarkable dignity in the face of provocation. Trump, meanwhile, addressed the incident during a later rally, claiming he had been ambushed and accusing the show of trying to set him up. His supporters cheered, while critics argued that his inability to handle dissenting voices only confirmed what the confrontation had revealed. What began as an ordinary talk show appearance turned into a cultural flashpoint, an unexpected meeting of two American icons from vastly different worlds. Carrie Underwood, the country star who built her career on faith, strength, and humility, found herself at the center of a storm she never asked for but handled with grace. Donald Trump, the master of controversy, walked away once again in defiance, his exit both symbolic and familiar. In the end, their clash wasn't just about politics or entertainment, it was about the deep divide in American discourse itself. It showed how two people, both passionate about the country they love, could see the same nation through entirely different lenses. Yet, amid the chaos, one truth remained evident: respect, compassion, and calm resolve can still speak louder than anger. Carrie Underwood didn't just clash with Donald Trump that day, she reminded millions watching that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply stands firm and refuses to be dragged down by noise.